Welcome to Reports. I don't want to make them. I just want to run them. I have gotten a lot of requests for very basic reports training. And sometimes when I do reports training, I kind of go into a lot of details about what's happening underneath the hood and all that, which is great for people who really want to understand the reporter and become pros at it. But a lot of people don't have that need. They just need to be able to run a circulation report once a month, and they don't care to spend the rest of their time figuring out deeper reports, or they want to, but they don't have the time, which is totally understandable. So today we're going to be starting at that point. We're going to basically learn how to create a report without without all the bells and whistles. So we're going to talk about the steps that you can follow to find an existing report and make that report run for you. I've set this for 2 hours, and I don't think it's going to take the full amount of time. So what I'm hoping is that we'll be able to spend the second half of this really talking about any questions you have, where we can dig into specific reports that you've maybe tried to run and haven't had a lot of luck with, or questions about what type of report would be good for this type of data need. So if you do have specific questions related to the reporter, then we can dig into them in the second half of the webinar. In the first half, we are just kind of going to go through the basic process of finding the reports you need and setting them up to run for you. If you do have questions as we're going through, please feel free to put those in the chat, and we will go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to do is talk about what you need to do to set up your account to run reports. If you've never run a report before, there is a minor amount of setup that's required before you can start running reports. Basically, all that needs to happen is that you need to create folders. So in order to do that, we're going to go into the administration menu and click on reports. You can also just choose this reports link here on the splash page. Once you are in the reporter, you'll see there are sort of two side menus here. There's my folders and there's shared folders. Shared folders are where you can find reports that are created by other users that have been made available either to your branch, your system, or all of NC Cardinal. And we'll talk about sharing in a few minutes. My folders is where your reports live. And this is important to recognize because if you look at the shared folder section, you see that I've got these little carrots. These allow me to expand each of these sort of categories. And then I can see that, the admin user has created shared templates that you can use. And that's important because admin is NC Cardinal. Up here under my folders, I don't see those carrots, and that's because I haven't done any initial setup to my reports account yet. So before I can move forward, I have to make sure that I have a place that I can save each step of my report. So I'll start by clicking on templates. Templates are the first step of a report when you make it. So it's the first folder I'm going to set up. And once I click on it, I get this button that says add top level template folder. So I'll click on it and I will give it a name. And now it might take a second. Yep, I have a little carrot here that I can expand. And now this folder that I've created shows up here. So if you've never used the reports in your account before, this is the thing that you'll need to do before you can move forward at all. You'll need to do this 3 times because reports are a 3-part process. The template is the thing that basically tells Evergreen what data to pull. The report step is what you'll do when we're doing the version of reports that we're talking about today. The report step is the one that you'll do. And then the output is the actual data that you get once the report has run. And you do need folders for each of those. So we're going to go ahead and click on reports and add top level folder. Now it auto populates with whatever I had entered the last thing that I had made. So the last folder I made, I called new templates. For my reports folder, I don't want that to be new templates. I want it to be new reports. So I will just replace that part of that auto populated name with reports and confirm. And, if I want all three of them to be named the same thing, if I'm naming them all circulation, I don't have to make any changes. I can just accept the auto-populated name if all three are going to be named the same thing. And then I'll do my final one, which is outputs. And so now I am ready to run reports. So that's really all it takes to be set up to run reports. All of your accounts, as long as you have a staff login account for Evergreen, you have an account that can run reports. So the only setup that's required is this folder creation setup. So that's your basic first step. Once you've done that, then you can start thinking about what reports you're trying to run. And the first step of running a report is finding a template. So there are three basic ways to find a template. So if you have run reports before, you may already have a template that works for you. Maybe this is just a refresher and you haven't run reports for a few years, but you do have some older templates. Most of those templates will work. There are a few things that don't always translate well after the last several upgrades. And so if you do run into issues with an older template, let us know and we can help you fix it. But for the most part, if you have existing templates, you should be able to work with those. The second way to get a template that's going to work for you is to find a template that somebody else owns. So maybe somebody else at your library regularly runs a report and you are going to be taking over that process. The first thing you'd want to do is clone their report or their template so that you own it. Alternatively, if you are making something from scratch for your library, you may be able to find an existing template in NC Cardinal's templates. So we have something we call the Centralized Reports templates folder. And we're going to take a closer look at this because this is where you can find a lot of the basic reports that you may need for everything from weeding to inventory to, patron addresses. We have a lot. So we're going to come down here to the shared folder section and we're going to expand out templates and we're going to come in here to admin. I'm going to expand that one as well. And I'm going to find the centralized report templates folder right here. So I'll expand that and you'll see all of the different categories of report templates that we have available for you. Anyone in NC Cardinal does have access to these. The only thing that we ask is that you clone these so that you own your own copy of it. And I'll show you how to do that. The process itself is very simple. So the first thing we want to do is find a template. Now there are a couple ways you can do this. You can say, well, I need a circulation template, so I'm going to expand this circulation folder and I want a count template for my circulation report that I want to run. So I'm going to choose counts and then I'm going to see everything that's available. Now from here, I could narrow it down a little bit by this upside down pyramid menu here allows you to filter. So if I know that I want a circulation report that contains stuff about shelving locations, I could put the word shelving in here and filter down specifically to reports related to shelving locations. And so that gets me down, there's still quite a few. It looks like there's 16 of them. And so then I just kind of want to scan through the descriptions until I find something that seems like it's going to suit me. So let's look at circulations by call number here. And if I look over here at the description, I see that this is going to display the barcode. It's going to display the last time the copy status was changed. It's going to display the time, the date and time where the item was activated. It's going to display the call number. It'll tell me the current item status. So this won't show, a history of item statuses or anything like that, but whatever the current status is. The current shelving location. The branch where this item, most likely where this item is sitting on the shelf or where it last circulated, but that could be a little bit tricky. If you see branch in here, sometimes it could mean owning library, sometimes it could mean circulating library. Usually the descriptions will try to put that in here if it's circulating library versus owning library. In this one, I'm going to have to run it to find out, unfortunately. And then the total number of times things within this set of categories have circulated. So Basically, because I have barcode here and barcodes are unique, I'm going to get each individual item and the number of times it's circulated. And then for each of those individual items, I'll also get this information. And then I will also get, let's see, our title, our author, and our publication year. So quite a lot of information in this particular report. I may look at this and think that's actually way more than I actually want. So maybe I'm going to choose something different. But if I decide that I like this one, I can move forward with it. If I want to move forward with it, all I have to do is right click on it and choose clone template. So once I've selected that template that's owned by somebody else, whether it's in the centralized reports templates folder or it's with a colleague at my library, all I have to do to bring it into my own account is to click clone. That's going to bring you into this screen. You don't need to do anything with this screen except choose a folder. So you see this little pink indicator up here says folder is required. Remember, we set up those folders just a few minutes ago, so all I have to do for that is select that folder. If you do reports often and you end up having lots of folders, you'll see them all listed here. I'll choose that, and then this save button went from sort of a faded out green to a bright green, and that's telling me that I can actively save now, so that's what I'm going to do. So now I own this template, and I can do whatever I want with it. So that is one way that you can find a shared template and clone it. Another option is to search for it. So this way I sort of knew what I was looking for and I had an idea of where to find it. Instead of doing that, I can come into search and I can still do a little bit of limitation. So I can say, I definitely know that I want to get something from the centralized reports templates. I just don't know which individual category it's going to be in. So I'm going to come down here to this folder to search section. And under the admin option, I'm going to choose centralized reports templates. I'm not going to expand and find one of those lower level folders within here. I'm just going to choose centralized reports. So I'm going to conduct a search that I've narrowed down to only things that are saved in this folder or a subfolder of this folder. So I'm still looking within centralized reports templates, but rather than kind of browsing through and knowing exactly which folder to look in, instead, I'm going to do sort of a broad search and see what I come up with. So for this one, let's try a weeding search. So I will put in my search term of weeding, and I've already selected the folder I want to search. And I've gotten 4 different options. So I have this shelf list by circulation date and copy status specifically called out as being for weeding, as well as a shelf list by circulation date, so no copy status. I also have an items by date and copy status, and if we look over here in the description, there's a note that says provides a list of items for weeding or inventory. And the same with this last one. There's again a note that provides a list of items for weeding or inventory. So I have 4 different options to choose from based on this search for a weeding report. And again, I can just sort of read through the descriptions and look for one that I think is going to suit what I'm looking for. And I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to go with this one, list items by date and copy status. So this one gives me the circulating branch. So see, this one was specifically called out that it's circulating branch, not owning branch. Shelving location, call number, item barcode, title, author, the number of circulations for each of those individual books that will be listed out here based on the barcode, copy status, publication year, and then creation date and time. This is really similar to that last template that we looked at. And this is one of the reasons that this search function might be useful, because both of these reports that we're looking at sort of give us the same thing. It's a lot of the same information, and it's giving us that circulation count. This one is probably owned within our inventory and weeding subfolder, whereas the other one was owned within the circulation subfolder. So doing the search kind of allowed us, rather than figuring out exactly where something might be, it allowed us to find something that might work for us regardless of which folder it's saved in. So that search can be really useful if you're not sure exactly where to go. Of course, if you use a really, really broad term like shelving location, this way, within the search, you're going to get a lot of results, and that can be a little overwhelming. So, searching versus browsing is kind of based on what information you have about what you're looking for and how comfortable you are navigating through the centralized reports templates folders. Either way, once I find something, whether I found it through the search or I've browsed directly to it in its folder, I would select it and right click and clone template. So again, this is going to bring me right back into this same screen where I have to choose a folder and then click save. And so now I should own 2 templates from just a few minutes ago, not even having a templates folder. I now have 2 templates in the folder that I've created. So we're going to open that up and we can see these 2 templates here. So these are carbon copies of the templates that I found from the centralized reports templates folder. But they are my copies of it, which means that if NC Cardinal decides to delete those original ones or move them around, it won't affect me at all. These are mine, and you can see that here because I am listed as the owner of them versus admin. So are there any questions about that process? And there's also an option within our knowledge books. So if I go into the knowledge books and into the reports knowledge book, and then I come down here to the appendices. Appendix F is shared reports. And this lists out everything that is in those centralized reports templates folders. So this is another way to browse. If you do find something you're looking for, then you can either kind of look and see, all right, this is an acquisition. So I know if I go into the acquisitions folder, I should find it. Or you could take the name of it and you could search for that name specifically. So this is another option as well. It's basically has to do with your comfort level within the different interfaces. So if you find it easier to kind of scroll through here and search, go for it. Let's even try this. I'm going to copy the title of this report and I'm going to come back into the reporter and go into search. And I'm going to search for this title and see if it comes up. It does. So I can just easily click on it and clone it. So that's another option for finding centralized reports templates. So that's kind of your best option when you're getting started. We have everything from fairly straightforward reports where it's just sort of an item list and you can choose your shelving location or something like that, to fairly complex things looking for genre terms and stuff like that. So the best thing that you can do to kind of get familiar with those folders is probably just browse around through them. But it's okay to not get familiar because the search functionality in Evergreen is now a lot better than it has been previously. So you should be able to search for the things that you need. So what do you do if you search for a report that you need and you don't find it, or you find something that kind of works, but it's not what you're looking for? Your best bet when you are, especially when you're just getting started with reports, is just to ask, submit a ticket or have your system admin submit a ticket requesting the report. Now, when you do that, it's really helpful if you can let us know exactly what you'd like to see in your output. So, if you send us a ticket that says, I need a circulation report, we're going to get back to you and say, great, I can help you with that. What are you looking for in your circulation report? If you send us a ticket that says, I'd like a circulation report that includes the barcode, title, date of circulation, and count of circulations in the last 6 months, then we can probably make something for you. So the more detail you can give us about what you're looking for, the better. We may still come back with some clarifying questions, or our first pass at what we're trying to get you doesn't get you quite the data you're looking for. And that's okay. We're happy to go back and forth as long as we need to, but you probably want the report relatively quickly. So the more you can give us up front, the faster that process can go. So that's kind of your third option if you are looking for reports and you cannot find anything that meets your needs. We're happy to help you put something together. So that's kind of the template step, which is where you get started with reports, is finding the template. Now, if you already own the template, and so you're just running a report off of a template over and over again, the next step of the process is the same every time. And that's where you actually run your report. So let me close some of this stuff up. The way that you run a report is you come into the templates folder where the template is saved. So I've cloned 3 templates now at this point. So if I want to run any of them, I'm going to come into my new templates folder, and I'm going to find the one that I actually want to run right now. So right now we have templates, which means we have the all of the kind of information that we're going to ask Evergreen ready to go. But we have to actually run that report in order for Evergreen to get pull the data for us. So we know what we want to ask Evergreen. Now we have to actually ask. And that's what this step is it's asking Evergreen to pull this data based on what's in the template. So we're going to go with I think I'm going to go with this third one, the items by date and copy status. So in order to run a report, I locate it within my template folder and I double click on it. And that's going to bring me into this page. And this page is where I set up the filters. So reports have basically 2 different types of data. They have columns or display fields. Depending on where you are, those will be labeled differently. But basically, that's what you're going to see in your output. Once you run the report, you'll have individual columns in your spreadsheet, and that's what the display fields refer to, is what each category for each column is going to be. The filters are how you tell Evergreen which specific data in each of those categories you'd like to see. So if you have a column for circulation date, you may have a filter that says dates between one day and a different date. And then you would set what that range is, whether it's a month or a year or something else in between. You can, at the filter point, set that specific date range. So your display field is what you'll see in the output. Your filters are how you determine what's included. And so those are set up at the template level, but you get to determine how you define them at this point. So once you are running a report, the first thing you'll need to do is define your filters. So with this particular report, we have 4 different filters to define. The first one is copy status change time. So for this particular report, I'm looking for items that had their copy status changed during a specific date range. And that's helpful with this kind of like circulation or weeding report, because it's going to give me an idea of when was this item last touched, even if it hasn't circulated. Has somebody done something with it? So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to set my date range, and I'm just going to make it from January 1st of 2025 through today. You can set this range however you'd like. We'll talk about recurrence in a little more detail in a bit, but one thing to be aware of is if you see this box for relative time value, if you check that box, then you can set a date range based on how many days ago something happened. I'm not going to do that right now, but we will come back to that in a little bit. All right, so my range is just under a year. Now, the second one here is my organizational unit ID, and that means my library. And this is the source of one of the most common errors that I see with reports. And that's that oftentimes people will choose this top level option here. If they work at Alexander County Library, they want to see all of the data for Alexander County Library. Unfortunately, Alexander County Library doesn't actually own or circulate any items. Instead, Alexander Main Library, Bethlehem Branch, and Stony Point Branch own and circulate items. So item ownership, patron home library, and any sort of transaction, whether it's circulations or hold related, that all happens at the branch level. So unfortunately, even if you're choosing all of the branches in your system, if you choose this top level system box, you're going to get 0 results. So I'm going to uncheck that, and instead I'm going to check all 3 branches here. So you can check just one, you can check everything, you can check anything in between that. Whatever it is you specifically need, just make sure you're checking the branch level, not the system level. So that is my first or my second filter. My third filter is shelving location. So location ID sounds a little vague, but if I look down here, I can see that it's shelving location related. And if I look over here, I also see that this list is named shelving location. So even though the title of this filter is a little confusing, there are a lot of hints here to tell me what I'm actually setting. So in this case, I can sort of go through and choose everything. Another thing that I can do is if I know that I specifically want juvenile materials, I can filter for juvenile. And so it's going to make this list only include those shelving locations that are related to juvenile materials. Still kind of a long list, but at least it makes it so I don't have to scroll to the bottom over and over again. And for this one, I'm going to go juvenile fiction, and I'll just choose anything that says juvenile fiction, regardless of sort of the subcategory for it. Right. Now the next option here is ID. Again, this is kind of vague, but if I look down here, I see that ID refers to item status. And if I look, of course, in my filter list, it's also labeled as item status. Now for this, remember, I'm looking for the current item status. That's what I saw in the description there. So I'm going to say I only want to see things that are currently available. If it's checked out or in transit or something like that, I'm not considering it for weeding. So I'm only curious about things that are currently available. So that's all I'm going to choose. I can choose more than one by checking the boxes for any that I'd like, but I'm just going to go with available. So I've set all of my filters now. I've got a date range. I've got the branches that I'm trying to get data for. I've got the shelving locations, and then I've got the item status. I'll click next. And this is where I determine what kind of output I want, how I want my output to function. Before I do that, are there any questions about setting those filters? All right, well, let's go ahead. Oh, the date field was set to between. Can we change that, or is that permanent based on the template? So Amanda asked about the date filter, and yes, the way that the date filter is set at the template level. So once you're at this point, unfortunately, you can't change it from here. So if you are comfortable doing so, you can go back to the template and make a new version of it that has a different operator for this. But you know, if all you're doing is running it at this point, there's nothing you can do with that. Now, if you wanted to only look at circulation data for yesterday, for example, you could, you know, set it for the 10th through the 11th. It's probably not really gonna quite hit what your needs are, if between is not the operator you're looking for, but unfortunately, yeah, once it's set and the template level, there's no way to reset it at the report step. So that's a good question. All right, any other questions related to setting these filters? All right, well, let's talk about our layout and scheduling, because this is where you basically tell Evergreen how you want to receive this output. So you've got a couple of different steps to that. We're going to skip pivot labels. That's a little bit of an advanced topic. It's one that I still struggle with quite a bit, to be honest. So we're going to skip that for now. The first one we're going to talk about is choosing your output format. So when you're selecting how you want to receive your output, the first thing you need to think about is, what does that output look like? And there are basically 3 different ones that I recommend using. So Excel, CSV, and HTML. I generally would say leave the calculate grouping subtotals alone unless you've planned a template specifically with that in mind. And the bar charts and line charts just really aren't that great. If you want charts from the data you get, you're probably better off getting an Excel file and creating a chart in Excel. You have a lot more control over what that chart looks like, and it's going to be a lot more readable. So for the most part, I would say just ignore those. You also have the ability to receive your output as a bib record bucket. If your report includes a bib record ID as one of the display fields. This particular report does not, so I'm not able to choose that. But if you do have a report that has a bib record ID as a display field, you can choose to receive your output as a bucket. And I did talk about that in a little bit more detail in my recent webinar on buckets. So if you're interested in that, I definitely recommend going back and taking a look at that webinar to see kind of how that process works. In general, when you're selecting output, most people choose Excel. Now, if you do choose CSV, that's going to work essentially the same way. When you open it up, it's going to open in Excel, and then you can save it as an Excel file. Choosing CSV is useful, though, if you are going to be using the results of this output as sort of the basis to upload things later. So if you want a list of barcodes and you're going to upload that barcode list into the item status screen, for example, you might want to save this as a CSV, because then you already have the file type you need for that particular upload. Either way, though, Excel or CSV, you're generally going to get about the same output. So it's up to you. Most people, I think, do choose Excel. A lot of people do not choose HTML. I usually do, because a lot of times when I run a report, the first thing I want to know is, did I even get any data? Because there are times when the report has some sort of error, and maybe it's one of those that I talked about where I've chosen my system rather than my branch as the owning library or the circulating library. That could result in blank output. And if that's the case, I want to know that before I've downloaded the Excel file. If you saw my desktop and how many random Excel files I have sitting on there that I don't even know what they are, you would understand why I don't want to keep downloading what turns out to be a blank file. So I usually choose HTML because it's a quick way for me to check that the report even worked before moving forward with downloading it. That's a personal preference, though. So you can choose HTML or not. It doesn't really matter. But these are sort of the 3 that you'd want to choose between, is Excel, CSV, or HTML. So the second thing I need to do when figuring out my output is figure out where that output's going to live. And that's actually a 2-step process. So remember, at the beginning, we set up 3 folders. We set up a template folder, a report folder, and an output folder. When we went to run this report, we didn't go into the report folder to run it. We went into the template folder. So we were using the template to set up the report to run. Once it runs, that report will actually save like the actual filters and everything that we've created will save, and that's going to save at that report folder. So we need to choose a folder for that point of the process to be saved into. That's easy in this case because I just have one. And then outputs, this is where the final output's going to go. So this is where Evergreen's version of this is going to live. Now you can also have it emailed to yourself, but you still need to have a place for it to be saved, even if you never go into that place to access it. So those little pink icons I had at the top have now gone away, and it's just telling me which folders I'm saving both of these points in the process to. So I've chosen my output format. I've chosen the folders where my report will be saved and where my output will be saved. Next, I have to talk about scheduling. So there are two basic types of reports. There are one-off reports where you run it once and maybe you'll run it again next month, but you don't run it on a regular cycle. You run it as you need it. And then there are recurring reports, which is basically where you schedule ahead of time exactly when this report will run. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes and we'll actually set one up. But for the basic report where you just run it as you need it, just keep this recurring report box unchecked. And under scheduling, you can choose to run it now, or you can schedule it for later. You know, if I knew that I wanted the circulation report, but I wanted it to receive it on, next Monday or something like that, I could schedule it to run at a later time. And that's going to basically just sit in my pending folder until that time comes, and then it'll run automatically. That is something that you definitely want to do when doing a recurring report. Outside of that, if you need something to run at a specific time, then go ahead and set it to do so. And then, or else you can always just run stuff immediately. And that's what I'm going to do right now so that we can actually see our output. So I'm going to choose to run report now. And then for my email address, it will probably auto-populate. If it does not auto-populate, or if it auto-populates with the wrong email address, then you can come in here and change it. So it's going to auto-populate with the email address that's set in your staff login account. You can also put in a comma, and you can put as many additional email addresses as you need to. So, if you want this report to come to you as well as your director, you just put in your director's email address. If you're setting up this report to run and you don't care about the output, you can get rid of your email address and you can just send it to your director. In this case, I don't want to send it to myself because I do that sometimes, and I do it with recurring reports sometimes, and I get like 5 reports every week in my personal email address, which I don't particularly want. It looks like Kat's got a question about the pivot column. So in very broad strokes, the pivot column allows you to take what would be columns and turn them into rows. Let me see if I can think of a good example. I don't use this often, so I don't have one at the top of my head. So for example, if you wanted to do a circulation report of books by genre, and you had a different column for each genre, and then under that column, and then it was basically a single row of data where for each genre that you had listed as a column, you had a number, and that was the circulation count. You could pivot that so that the genre column, this really actually isn't a very good example, but so that the genre column is an individual row. And so you have then, your romance row then, and then you get your count for that one. I'm trying to think if I can come up with a better example of that. And I probably don't have one sitting around because I don't even remember the last time I've done something with pivot columns. But okay, so yeah, basically you're taking what would be columns and you're turning them into rows. So I don't think we can even set that up. Yeah, we can. So in this case, I could say that I want the branch column to show up as different rows simply by choosing that. And then the number of circs would be the thing that pivoted. It's so hard for me to explain because it's just so outside of my norm. So hopefully that's clear enough. And we can go into more detail in this in a report webinar later on this year. I'm going to do some more complicated things later this spring. So I'll try to include that in one of them because it'll be good for me to learn more about it. Okay, so for the email addresses, yeah, unless you're specifically trying to pivot, and really you only want to do this on templates that have been sort of created with pivoting in mind, I would just ignore pivoting altogether. So yeah, unless that's something that you kind of go into this knowing you're planning to do, just leave that unset. All right, so we have our layout and scheduling set. We're going to get our output as an Excel file as well as an HTML link. It's going to be saved in our new reports folder, and the output will go to our new outputs folder. It's going to run immediately, and the output's going to be sent to my email address. And so I can, because it's being sent to my email address, once I save it, I can just go on about my day, do other things. And once that report's done, I'm going to get an email and I can use that email to access my output. So let's go ahead and save and schedule it. So it's saved successfully. Now, because I am in the middle of a webinar and therefore not going to go on about my day, I'm going to instead go directly into my outputs folder and I can watch it. And I actually don't even have a chance to watch it because it's already done. While it's running, it's going to show up at the top here under this pending section. Once it's complete, it shows up in the complete section and it's already completed. So it's a relatively quick report. Sometimes that means that it's going to be blank. So let's test it and see. So like I said, I usually include HTML in my output so I can do that quick check to make sure that it's not blank. So not sure what's going on here, but you shouldn't normally need to do that. Oh, I think I know why. It's because I ran it at Alexander, Maine, and I'm signed in to Hack. So that shouldn't normally be a problem for you because you're not going to be running reports on other library stuff. Anyway, so this is the results of my report, and I've got my branch is listed here on the left, my shelving location, the call number, barcode, title and author, and then the number of circulations for that particular item during this period of time that I selected from January 1st up until today. The current copy status is today, or I'm sorry, available, the publication year, and then the creation time. So I can use this circulation report to provide data for my governing body, to provide data to my director. I can also use it for various different statistical reports that I may need to do for different aspects of my job. Can also use it for weeding and say, you know, this one here has only circulated once this year. Maybe it's not something that we want to continue keeping in our collection. Now, if I go click on this back to output index button, then the tabular output is where I just was. I could go ahead and download my Excel file. And then the final one is this debugging info. So if I click on that, I get a bunch of information that is probably pretty useless to you, to me, because when I'm looking at this, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Where this comes in handy is if your report did not give you the type of data that you expected, it seems to be missing things, it seems to be including way more than needed. You can take this, copy it, and submit a ticket to NC Cardinal, and we can use this to run against the database directly and see if we can figure out what went wrong. So when you have a report that fails, one of your best options is to reach out to us for help. And if you can send us this gobbledygook, we can take it and we can use it to figure out what maybe isn't quite right or what needs to be tweaked. There's additional information down here. Most of this isn't super useful, but what can be useful is this stuff right here. So if you are sending a ticket in, the debugging stuff here at the top is useful, and then giving us this template ID number can also be useful. There are other places to find the template ID number, but this is a quick one to find it. Now, if your report fails outright, so you get an error message instead of the links to actually view it, then if you just want to, you should still get an email saying that it failed. Forward that email to us along with submitting a ticket, and we can use that email to sort of backtrack and figure out what went wrong. Other than that, you don't ever really need the debugging information. because there's not a lot you can do with it unless you can run it against the database. Now, if I come back into my output folder, I clicked on HTML, and of course from there I was able to get to the Excel file, but I could also download Excel directly from here just by clicking on the Excel option, and now I've downloaded this copy. That is the basic process from start to finish. We are going to talk about recurrence, but before we do that, are there any questions about that process? So we basically learned some quick ways to find a template, clone that template, and run it. Let's see, Lauren asked, is it required to email the report to yourself or can you just schedule it? It is not required. You can leave that blank and it should work. And then all you have to do is come into your output folder to find it. So, if you don't like to get your inbox cluttered up with these messages and stuff, or if you don't have access to an email address at your job, then you don't have to include one. Any other questions? Yes. So any report you've ever run is going to show up in this complete section until you actively delete it. So if I'm like, I've looked at this, I've got what I need, I don't need it anymore. I can go here and under actions, I can delete it. I think we do have, now that I've said it, everything you've run will always be there. I actually realized that's wrong because we do have an automatic process that's going to run. I think it's every 3 months. It might be every 6 months that does get rid of older output. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the parameters of that are. I don't think it gets rid of everything. Benjamin's going to check on the details of that because we do have something that automatically gets rid of older things, but I don't remember exactly what it gets rid of. I know in my regular account, my output folder is very, very full. So a lot of stuff is kept. But yes, you can access past things here. Now, even if that automatic deletion process comes in and deletes things, or if you've manually deleted things, if you have the email, you may still be able to access the Excel, if nothing else. I'm not certain about that. I've never tested it, but I'll look into that. Just like other grids, if you end up with more than 10, you can either navigate through with the buttons or you can change your view to show more than 10 in this complete section. All right, well, if there are no more questions about what we've covered so far, let's go ahead and talk about recurrence. Because a lot of times, especially with things like circulation reports, people want the same report over and over again. And one of the best ways to kind of ensure that that cycle stays consistent is to set them up to recur. So the way that we do that, I'm going to use the same report that we've just done, but this time I'm going to set it up as a recurring report. So a lot of the process is the same. I find the template that I need, whether that's something I already have or I need to go to an external folder to try to find something I can clone, or I need to ask for help creating one. Once I have that template, I just double click on it. And that's going to bring me right back into the same place that I was setting up my report to run before. This time, I'm going to do a few things slightly differently. The first thing I'm going to do differently is this copy status change time filter. I'm going to check this relative time value button. The reason for that is that if I don't have this and I just set up a date range, and let's say that I want it to be monthly. So I set it up from November 1st through November 30th. Every time this report runs, I have it set to run monthly. I'm going to get the data from November 1st through November 30th, 2025. So even in, April of 2028, I'm still getting that November data. So if I use these exact dates, those exact dates will always be used for the recurring report. That's why instead I need to change it to a relative time value. And so for this, I'm going to say between 30 days ago and 1 day ago. Now, this isn't exactly the ideal setup for a recurring report, just because if you have a monthly recurrence, obviously there are going to be some months that are 30 days and some that are 31. So you do want to look, I don't know if you noticed when we were looking through the centralized reports templates folder, some of them sort of designated that it was monthly or multi-month. You kind of want to look for those designated reports if it's going to be a monthly recurrence, just because that's going to be set up with a very specific operator for your dates for that. And in fact, just to avoid the weirdness of the 30 days, I'm just going to make this a weekly report. So 7 days ago. All right, Benjamin got back about that automated deletion. The process runs every night and cleans up reports and their output older than 90 days. Templates are not touched. They can be used again. So yeah, every 90 days, that is going to be, your output is going to be cleaned up. So just if there's anything that you do need to keep, make sure you've downloaded the Excel. But otherwise, things will continue to show up in your completed folder for 90 days, it sounds like. All right, so I've set my relative time range. The next thing I'm going to do is the rest of my filters will be the same as I set them up before. I'm just going to match the exact same setup I had, except I'm going to do adult fiction this time because it's less scrolling. Now, the real thing happens with recurring reports in the layout and scheduling tab. So at the top, I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to choose how I receive my output. I'm going to choose where I'd like to save it. And I'm going to leave everything else alone. But then down here, I'm going to say that this is a recurring report by checking this box. Once I've said this is a recurring report, the next thing I need to do is say how often I want it to recur. So because I set that date range for 7 days, I'm going to say, let's make this recur every 7 days. So it's going to be a weekly report. Now I also have the option to do this. I could say instead of every 7 days, I could say every 1 week. I could do months, so I could do once a month. I could do every 6 months. I can also have it recur every year. So, some people will set up their PLS reports to recur regularly, and they'll just have them recur once a year. I can also do an hourly report. And actually, for this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and do that because that'll make it easier for me to show some of the stuff I wanted to show with how you delete reports. So you set your recurrence interval, and then you schedule it. You can run it now, and that's fine. And that's actually what we're actually going to do within the webinar. The only reason to avoid that with a recurring report is, generally speaking, you have very specific slices of data you're trying to get in your output. So if I want a specific week to show up, then I probably want that report to run every Monday so that I can see the previous week's data. Or if it's a monthly report, I probably want it to run on the first of every month. If I run my report now, then it's going to run on December 11th. And if it is a monthly report, then it's going to run again on January 11th and on February 11th. And if my relative time value, my relative date range is based on a certain number of days ago, that's going to be sort of an odd slice of data. It's not going to match up, excuse me, specifically with a calendar month. So in those cases, you want to schedule it. And then, so if I wanted this to run once a month, I would schedule it for January 1st. If I was going to do it once a week, I would schedule it for next Monday, the 16th. So you want to make sure that the first running of your report coincides with the date you regularly want the report to run, because once it's run once, it will run on the recurrent schedule based on that initial run date. Does that make sense? All right. Well, so normally I would want to set a date for this. I'm not going to, for the sake of showing you what happens with a recurring report. Instead, I'm just going to run it now. Again, I can leave this with the default email address. I can make it blank. I can put in somebody else's email address, or I can add additional email addresses. I definitely recommend with recurring reports that you have it sent to an email address. That way it just automatically goes to your inbox and you can check it. A lot of times people will have recurring reports set to run at like 6 a.m. So they're getting data that does not take the current day's, transactions into account. So that way, basically, when you come in the morning, it'll be sitting in your inbox. So I definitely recommend putting your email address in if you're running a recurring report. I'm going to go ahead and save and schedule this. Oh, I didn't change the name. Let's call it recurring. So that's a good reminder that you do need to have unique names for both the template and the report each time. So I'll save and schedule. It saved successfully. And so now I would, if this was a normal recurring report, I'd wait until that recurrence is set to go for the first time. And then on that date, I'd get my email. For the sake of this webinar, of course, I set it to run immediately. So when I come into my outputs, I can see that it's sitting in my pending section right now. So I can wait for a little while. I get very impatient, so I start clicking this refresh grids button, and I'll just click it over and over again until it runs. In this case, I only had to click it once because it did run. That wasn't immediately obvious because there's still something in the pending folder, and this is what I wanted to show you. After a recurring report completes, you're going to get that version of the report based on its scheduled runtime in your complete section. So this was scheduled to run at 2:55 p.m. I can open it up and take a look, make sure that it's the data I expect. I can download my Excel file, and then I can wait for 3:55 p.m. because at 3:55 p.m., this is going to run again. And I can tell that because it's in my pending section and this is its scheduled runtime. Now, if this was a weekly report or a monthly report, the date would reflect that. It would reflect the next scheduled recurrence of it. Really important, do not delete what you find in the pending section. If you do, not only will this recurrence not go through, but no further recurrences will. So if you delete a pending recurring report, that is akin to canceling that report into the future. So, if you have a situation where like this week, I don't need this data, you're just going to have to get it anyway, and then you can ignore the data, because once you've deleted it, you would have to go back to the beginning and start that setup all over again and reschedule your recurrence to restart. The recurrence cycle is based on when it last ran, and if there is a date that is not within the recurrence cycle for it to use as that sort of as that touchstone date, then it will fail. So just be really careful not to clean up your pending reports. Any questions about that? All right. Well, I am going to delete this report because I don't want to continue to get this every hour. My inbox would fill up really fast if I did that. So instead, I am going to select it, and then I'm going to come up here to my actions menu, and I'm going to choose delete selected. And so now that output has been deleted, that pending output. I still have the first run of that report, but I won't get the 3:55 one, and I won't get any subsequent runs of that report. All right, there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about. Well, two more things, but they're related, and that is sharing templates. Before I do, we've kind of gone through all of the stuff about the actual process. Are there any questions about the process? Oh, good. I'm glad it was easier to understand. A lot of times, I feel like reports are so complicated that when you start explaining them, they they get more confusing. So I'm glad that this cleared things up. All right, well, let's talk about sharing, because sharing is a very useful way to do two things. One, to make sure that colleagues at your library have access to your reports, so they don't have to build their own from scratch. And two, it's really useful if you are having trouble with a report, if it's in a shared folder, because when you put in a ticket, we can go into that shared folder and we can kind of see the template as you've set it up, and work off of it from there. So when you are creating your folders, or even after the fact, you can determine whether or not these are shared folders. So if you're in your templates folder, up here at the top, you have this button to share folder. When you click that, you have three options. You can share it with your branch, you can share it with your system, or you can share it with all of NC Cardinal. The way that you choose to share it is up to you. Even if you want us to be able to look at it, you don't have to make it available for all of NC Cardinal. You can put it at your branch, just let us know that, and we'll make sure that we are logging into Evergreen from your branch so that we can actually view those shared folders. So, if you want to share this with your colleagues, but you don't necessarily want everybody to have access to it, you can make that determination. So let's share it at the branch level. And after I do that, when I look at it within the folder, I now see this parenthetical designation of the branch where it's shared. So that's how I can tell that this is a shared folder. I can change that sharing at any time. I can just click unshare, and that'll take that sharing off. And then I can share again, and this time I can, take it up to Cardinal. So sharing is fairly straightforward. At some future date, they may make it a little bit more nuanced so you can share it with specific people. But at this time, those are your options, are basically to share it with your branch, your system, or all of NC Cardinal. So at this point, all I've shared are the templates. I can do the same with my reports and outputs, but really the only one that you really need to share is templates, because that's what other people would use if they wanted to borrow one of your reports. Now, one other reason that you might want to share is if you have become the reports person at your library and you have all of these wonderful reports that run and everybody counts on your data, and you get an amazing job offer, or it's time for retirement, or you win the lottery and move to Tahiti. Any of those things could happen, and then your library needs somebody else to run reports. And when that happens, if your reports are shared, it makes the process a lot easier. That's the final thing I wanted to talk about, is what to do in that situation. But it does look like we've got a question. Since we have to change the name every time we run a report, how does that work with recurring reports? In that case, Evergreen doesn't change the name at all, because the output can have the same name. The output can have a duplicate name. It doesn't need to be unique. And the report is still just a single report. So if I go into my reports folder, this is the recurring run that I've just made. It doesn't matter how many times it runs. I could have, 15 different outputs for this report. I would still just have a single report for it. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to create a unique name each time, because it's just running that same report over and over again. And the output names can be the same. All right, so let's say you are moving to Tahiti, and in the process of that, you are giving your reports to somebody else to take care of. The ideal way that happens is, you are leaving your job, and you and your system administrator work together to determine who else is going to get these reports, and you transfer that ownership before you leave. Now, of course, there are many times where the realization that the reports need to be transferred does not happen until after somebody leaves. That's really common. Usually it's not because of anything bad. It's just that nobody thought about the fact that this recurring circulation report that runs every month is owned by the person who's leaving, until suddenly they're not getting the circulation report anymore. Once your account is deactivated, your reports, including those that were set to recur, will stop functioning. So whether this happens before you leave or after you leave, the process for transferring reports is a little bit clunky. What I recommend you do is you, your system administrator, the person who's going to be taking over your reports, schedules a call with me and I'll walk you through the process. But if you want to try it on your own, basically you need to make your report, your template shareable. Then the other person needs to log into their account. And under the shared folders, they need to find your template folder. So let's say that we are going to take admin train, and we're going to go into the training folder. And these are the folders that admin train is designating for me. Admin train is leaving, and it is now up to me to take over all of her reports. So I go into her folder where she's got her template saved, and I clone them. And then I do the same process that we've just done for setting up recurring reports. And I basically just do that for every single report that I need to take over. If it's not a recurring report, but I do want to take this existing template so that as I run reports, I can work off the same template that was used in the past, I can just do that. I can just clone it and then set it up to run just as we did earlier today. But the big thing is that I need to take those templates and I need to clone them into my own account. Like I said, this is a lot easier to do before the person who owns the reports initially leaves, because then they can just make sure that everything's shared and the new owner can go in and clone them. If it happens after their account's already been deactivated, that's when it gets a little trickier because we have to reactivate and we have to basically have an NC Cardinal person go in and make all those reports shareable. It's just a little bit more time consuming, but we're happy to do it. It just, generally speaking, nobody realizes that that needed to happen until you already are missing a couple circulation reports. So always best to get ahead of it. And that brings me to the end of my list of what I wanted to talk about today. But we do have about 55 minutes left. So I wanted to open this time up for anyone who had specific questions, whether you have a report you've been trying to work on that's not working, or there's something that you've run into in the past that you've been confused about. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you may have. So Kat asked if I'll do a class where we can create a report. I have done webinars like that in the past. It is kind of hard to do virtually because, I think it's always good to kind of be in the same room in that case, because I can kind of come over your shoulder and help you out if you get stuck. But I do have a few that I've done in the past, and those recordings are up on YouTube. Anything reports related is kind of in the same playlist on the NC Cardinal YouTube channel. I will do some more. I'm planning to do at least 2 more reports webinars this spring. They'll be a little bit more advanced, but I definitely encourage you to come and follow along. I don't have them scheduled yet. I think I'm probably looking at one I can check real quick and see kind of what I have in mind. It's not official. But I can take a look. Let's see. So I was looking at doing, actually the next one I'm looking at doing probably in January or February is sort of the next step in this process, which is looking more closely at transforms and operators. So when we were looking at that date range where it was set at between, I was going to talk about how you can set up different operators and transform your data in different ways when working with templates. So if you wanted to attend that one, it's not officially on the schedule yet, but it'll probably be either late January or February. And then I was going to do some that are specific to cataloging reports later this spring, and then some on item reports in the very late spring, early summer. So keep an eye out just on I'll show you in case you're not familiar with it. in the About NC Cardinal book of upcoming evergreen training opportunities. I usually have these listed a couple months in advance, just with the end of the year and everything being kind of um, odd this time of year. I haven't advanced this past December yet. I'll probably do that sometime next week. I'll start getting spring stuff set up. But there's usually a couple months worth of things listed in here. So just keep an eye on that. And once report stuff comes up, you'll have a chance to register. Yeah. I see that Kat has raised her hand. May have just been an accident. So Jesse asked about general timeframes for how long a report should be pending before you give up on it. Usually reports take less than 5 minutes. So if it's taking longer than that, it's possible something's wrong. It will time out after an hour. So I would usually say don't bother deleting it until an hour passes, just in case, because there are some report types that are more complex and they can take a while. Generally, they have to do with anything related to bib records. So, if you're running something that's pulling a lot of metadata from the MARC record, those reports do take longer. Um, if you don't want to wait the full hour for it to time out, if it passes 10 minutes, it might be worth maybe not deleting it, let it run in the background just in case, but going in and working on another version of it. Sometimes if there's a lot of data, like a really, really big output, that one can be kind of slow too, but usually it has more to do with the complexity of what's being pulled than the amount of data. All right. Kat says she's got a report with an issue, items loaned to consortium members from RCPL. Let me see if I can take a look at that. I might not have direct access. Let's take a quick look at it right now, and because sometimes the issues that you may be having may be similar to things other people experience. If we end up having to get really in the weeds, then we'll convert it to a ticket and we'll work on it through that. But let's take a quick look and just see if we can see what's going on. Okay, this one may not be currently shared. So if you don't have it shared, give me just a second. No, that's not what I wanted. Hmm. Okay, so items loaned to consortium members displays branch, destination, library, send date, circ mod, shelf location, and transit count. So can you tell me a little bit about the issue that you're experiencing with it? Okay. Let's see. I'm going to start by looking at the filters in the template just to make sure they're set up in a way that would allow that. Yeah, we should be able to work with that. I'll save it. And so when we run it, just for the sake of this one, I'm just going to do this month so far. Oh, I see what the problem is. Okay, yeah, that's easy. So what I'm going to do is it's a quick fix, but and I can walk you through how to fix it and you can try it on your own. But if you'd like me to fix it for you, let me know and I'll just share the fixed version. But the fix happens at the template level because what has happened here is that they have, whoever made the template, defined the values for the filter at the template level rather than allowing the user who's running the report to define them at the report level, which is fine. You know, there are a number of reasons somebody might want to do that. But what we're going to do is I'm going to change this name to by branch. Then under filters, I am going to come to the organizational unit ID filter. This check mark says supply filter value. That's what's allowing that hard coding to happen. So I'm just going to uncheck that. And for supply hint, I'm going to write choose your branch. That way I remember what to do. I'm going to do the same thing with this next one. And so then I will save my newly made template. So basically all I had to do was I went into the template itself. I went to these two filters, and that's this second tab here. It says filters. And all I did was uncheck the supply filter value. You don't have to do the hint if you don't want to. That helps me when I have these transit reports, but you don't need to do that. But yeah, just uncheck supply filter value. So if you're doing that live right now, just let me know once you've done it. You don't see that. You don't see the supply filter value box. Okay. All right, for now, I'm going to finish by just showing what happens here. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is submit a ticket with a screenshot of what you are seeing so I can understand what's going on your end of things. In fact, I'll even start a ticket for you and have it sent to you. And then you can just respond to it with a screenshot because I'm not sure why you wouldn't be seeing that. I've got a couple ideas, but I can't test it without seeing your screen. So no problem. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to find my newly created template. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm thinking is that we may be looking in the wrong place. But that'll be easy to figure out based on your screenshot. So we'll get you there. I'm going to set for this one. Let me just check my columns real quick. Yeah. I'm just going to set a very short time period. And we'll just look at, do you care which branch I choose? Outreach. There we go. And then I'll do the same thing down here. And everything else is the same as what we've been doing. I'm not sure how long this one will take to run. So it might take a moment. Sometimes transit reports are a little bit more complex, so they may take a little longer. Still probably less than 5 minutes, but while we wait for that, any questions about anything else, other reports people want to take a closer look at? All right. Well, I appreciate everybody being here today. I encourage you to go and work on reports if you've never run one before. Try replicating what we've done. If you run into issues or questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate everybody spending their time this afternoon with me. So have a great afternoon, and I'll see you at the next one.